Hello everyone, Andrew Knight here from RICS, the RICS Tech Partner Programme. I work within our Standards, Regulatory and Thought Leadership Directorate, and I lead the RICS Tech Partner Programme, which is our community of PropTech, ConTech and all the various other versions of data and technology that work in the built and natural environment. And I'm really pleased today to have Darrell Cann joining me from Apex Mobile Technology, or Apex MobileTech. Welcome, Darrell.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrew. It's good to be here.
Great, Darrell. So let's kick off. I'm really interested to hear about who Apex are and also your backstory, your mix of skills and experience, and what's brought you to your state now, and why you created Apex.
Yeah, long story. As you can see by my hair, I've been around for a while. I started my career as a civil engineer as a young bloke. Graduated from a university in Melbourne, spent 4 or 5 years engineering there, and then moved from there into senior corporate positions for some fairly large Australian companies, and spent a bit of time travelling overseas. But very quickly got jack of that, and decided to run my own. I wanted to run my own business, so I went back to school and studied property valuations.
All right.
Got my degree, and then started up my own valuation company, doing residential, industrial, commercial, retail, all up in the country in eastern Victoria.
Yeah.
It was that point I found there was really no technology that would properly support my business model. I didn't want to put in lots and lots of typists and admin people, so I started writing my own tech back in about 2017. And then as that technology base grew, my interest in technology grew, and I started in about the year 2000, Apex MobileTech Australia. We moved to the UK in about 2006, where we picked up a contract with the Valuation Office Authority. So we've been developing mobile synchronization-based field data recording and report writing systems. And about 5 years ago, we started developing our latest product called Scribe, which is a digital modelling system. Yeah,
that's great. Well, I thought on that theme, I mean, what's your your summary of how the sector is beginning to use technology to look at measurement and floor plans? What's the sort of state of that journey for the sector?
Yeah, so it's much bigger in the residential valuation side of things, and in Australia, we probably have about 70% market share with our sketching and area calculation software for the residential mass, not the mass appraisal, but the mortgage guys are all using it. Somewhat less involved in the commercial, industrial, retail space, and partly that's due because there is no real sketching solution for that space. Most of the sketching solutions are very simple line drawing tools. And all really developed in America. And this is one of the reasons we decided to develop Scribe. We wanted one that was suitable for UK and suitable for Australia, and did the full range of properties, everything from a shop through to a house, through to a factory. So I would say at a basic level, electronic line drawing is well adopted in some countries and not so well in others, but it is really one of the keys to becoming a paperless office. If you can't draw a sketch and do an area calculation in a digital form, then you've got no chance of really going paperless. So it's probably the first nut you have to crack when you move down that track.
So as you say, it's a fairly foundational piece, really, isn't it, to get the rest of that data trail digitized. So talk us to how you developed it, and I'm also particularly interested to hear about how you've used the Unity Games engine. I think a lot of our listeners might be quite perplexed is perhaps the wrong word, but intrigued to know how gaming technology in this case is impacting the built environment sector, Darrell.
Yeah. So it's important to understand we took a very different approach with sketching. I've been involved with sketching engines now for over 20 years. And generally what's in the market now is an ability to draw a sketch, which is everything from, say, an AutoCAD engine, which might cost £15,000 a license and take 5 years to learn. And in the other end of the spectrum, you've got Microsoft Paint, which comes free and you can scribble on it and do whatever you like. you might laugh at that. That was my first attempt at doing sketching using Microsoft Paint, but very quickly realised it wasn't going to cut it. And then all through that spectrum, you've got various other programs that have been developed to suit specific industries. And so when we looked at those, they all have one thing in common, is they're all linked to one or more platforms, iOS, Android, or web-based.
Yeah.
And they all designed to take an input and produce an export, which is generally a JPEG or something like that. And that's a pretty data bland medium. You print it out and then it's useless. So we wanted to move to the next generation. So our software was designed always to produce a digital model. And this is a three-dimensional, fully interactive digital model. And the value is not in the JPEG that it exports. The value is in the fact that it's data rich. And we developed ways of sharing that model with customers or potential clients or whatever the case may be. And so given that that was our vision, it was to produce an environment that people can come and go into rather than a software that produced an export and just gave people the export. We started to look around for what was the best platform to actually use this. And the gaming engines were one of the first that we looked at. And we looked at a number. We settled on Unity, which is the largest gaming engine probably. There's some 3 or 4 million computer programmers that work in that environment, so it made recruiting a little bit easier. But there's also a lot of benefits that come straight out of the box with a gaming engine. So things like deployment to all the environments, Android, iOS, Windows, web-based, straight out of the box, artificial intelligence, machine learning, multi-user, so we can have more than one person sketching at a time. You know, all these sort of things meant that we could just jump in there, write our C+ code into that environment, and then you've got a whole lot of stuff there. It's well supported, well maintained. There's new features coming along all the time that we're harnessing for our application as well. So, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Unity has problems with form-based databases and stuff like that. So we have to work a little bit harder for doing those things because it wasn't designed for that. But up till now, it's proved to be quite effective and quite fast to develop, although it has taken us a lot longer than we thought. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And you know, how does it work with the surveyor? Because you know, there's always that sort of cliche now that technology is going to kind of replace the surveyor, which I don't think. You know, I think we've talked before about this. It's more about augmenting what they do, but how do they work with it, and how do they still add value when clearly using a really intelligent environment like a games engine with all that technology? That's obviously adding a lot of intrinsic value. So what's that kind of almost machine-human interface look like, and how does your solution support that added value of the surveyor themselves using it in the real world?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The value that the surveyors bring to their role is the ability to, you know, make complicated decisions, you know, and so we took an approach whereby we wanted to automate the process as best we can, because a large number of jobs are very, very similar, especially when you move into the residential market. But ultimately, we needed a system that was what we just saw, completely manual at the last stage. And so I'll show it to you now. Our system basically comes through from a completely automated system, and the last stage is completely manual, which gives the valuer or the surveyor a chance to override their basic assumptions. So if I share my screen,
that'd be great.
Okay, this is the start of our program. We've set up a process by which we can have various profiles, and the profiles control everything from how the JPEG looks at the end, right through to what functions are available and how the area calculations are done and all that sort of stuff. So I might pick a UK non-domestic profile and start my sketch. We completely reimagined sketching. So this, if any listeners have used a sketching program, then this is very, very different. We focused on making sure it was intuitive, the user interface was simple, and it's very quick to learn. A lot of surveyors, especially commercial surveyors, might only do one sketch a week, or 3 or 4 a week. So you don't want something they have to relearn every time.
Yeah.
So very simple. This is the sketch pad. You press and hold with your mouse, your finger, your pen, with whatever device you're using, and you just draw the lines in the direction you want them to go. If you want to adjust their length, then you can adjust them by typing in the new dimension like this and pressing an arrow, and it adjusts that length, then goes on to the next line and adjusts the length, and so on. And this way you're taking an accurate set of dimensions around the building. If you've got a Bluetooth laser measurer, then it will automatically grab those measurements and send them through as well. And the addition of a Bluetooth laser with this program leads to high levels of productivity, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you want to curve a line, you just hit a line like this, and then you can curve the line, you can make curves. If you want to do angles, you can do angles as well. And you can come off those angles at right angles. So pretty much anything that is out there, we can draw. At the moment, it's drawing in 2D because that's the way most people envisage. If we want to go into aerial mode, you can see I've actually produced a 3D model. And in this model is completely editable in this mode. I can make things bigger and smaller. I can add doors in, any type of door. I can resize those doors. I can move them around the building, and so forth. So this is what we talk about being a completely 3D interactive model. I can open and close those doors. I can change the colors of the floor and whatever the case may be. And I can put in windows and doors and resize those as the need fits. So that's really quickly how you draw. Let me just open up a file that I prepared earlier, which has some of the other elements that we were talking about. So this is a sketch I prepared earlier. It's a 2-level commercial building. This is the bottom level. I've just randomly named some of the rooms. And if you go to my top level, if you go to the aerial, you can see, get a bit of a view that it is a single-story building, a double-story building, and I can show the second story there. So it's actually produced a full 3D model. If you jump into here, you can see this one has a sloping roof.
Yeah.
I've just done that for a reason. There's a door through here. I can open and close doors as I move through the building. Here we've got some columns, which we'll talk about in a minute for those values that think they're important. And if I come into this room, again, stairwells, I can walk up the stairs here and onto my top floor. So the cost of building a 3D digital model like this is about the same cost of doing a 2D floor plan with other software. It just pulls it together so quickly. The real smarts happen here in calculate mode for a property valuer. I go back to my lower ground floor. You can see straight away here that we've divided each of these walls into 2 segments, and this allows us to measure to the internal face, the middle, or the external face. We also have identified this grey area over here as being low head height area. You know, remember the room we were in?
Indeed, yeah.
And so essentially now we can do multiple simultaneous equations. So here I've got this preset. It calculates my net internal area. You'll notice that it's omitted to take into account columns and the stairs, and it's also omitted to take into account the low ceiling area. But close that one down. You can also do my gross internal area, and you see then that time it's taken into account the external walls. or my gross external area. It's taken out the external walls as well. And all this is done based on how the user has configured it. IPMS1, which is similar to gross external area, I can calculate there, and IPMS3, which is similar to net internal area, and you'll see that these windows are where we've taken the distance to the dominant face. So this particular window, we've taken it in 100 millimeters, and this one's gone in 50 millimeters to the dominant face. We can come back to that in a little bit, but the whole process of eliminating low head height areas, columns, if you look at this space here, the area between the column and the wall is less than 250 millimeters. So we've been able to isolate that area as unusable area. And these are the assumptions that a valuer would make most of the time. But should he be confronted, or she be confronted with a particular case where maybe the client says, we're going to remove those columns next week. You say, okay, well, in that case, I can just click on these columns, or in the room, click on these columns and add them back into the area calculation, and same with those areas between the columns. And everything can be overwritten manually at this level. So if I wanted to include the stairs, we have a three-way switch for these stairs. I click the stairs once and it's going to include the stair or the area under the stair, whichever. If I click it again, it's going to include both the stair itself and the area under the stair. Or I click it again, it'll exclude the stair completely. So the valuer has got complete control, manual control, over how the program works and how at the end the calculations are completed. But if it's set up correctly, you would anticipate that maybe 70%, 80% of his jobs would go through pretty much as expected.
No, that's great, and I suppose it highlights for me the challenge, particularly globally, where there are these multiple measurement standards, and obviously we're very keen that over time the world adopts the international property measurement standards as a global consistent piece. But we are very mindful that we live in a world of multiple standards, of people measuring a building for multiple purposes, and perhaps having to report at least in one or two standards. And I guess what you've done is, by going to that level of granularity of, recording walls both to middle and exterior, interior, and that ability to effectively include and exclude these areas, we're hopefully in the best of all worlds here, because you can effectively produce almost any kind of measurement type that has that kind of component type approach of what do you add in, what do you take out, and still the value of the measurer has got the ability to somewhat override that, or use their judgment to decide what kind of measurement standard they're working to, and also to make those professional judgments where there may be some, as ever in a different jurisdiction, the concept of low height will have a different physical measurement.
Yeah, and we did a lot of research into measuring standards across the country, and there are some weird ones.
Yeah.
Standard rug size in Japan and things like that. And so, basically, where we took into account elements like stairs, columns, voids, holes in floors, low head height areas, and things like that. So, if we came across a standard that was included some other element, we just add that in. But
exactly.
The user has the ability to develop their own standard, or to develop one along the lines of a more regulated standard like what RICS has.
Yeah. And indeed, and I assume from the way you described it, as you say, the JPEG is an output rather than the medium that you store the measurement. So you've got a live model here, which can obviously be updated if the measurement basis needs to change, but effectively the JPEG is merely an output of it rather than the actual medium itself. So you've managed to, and I guess also as I think about and watch this, it does address that big problem that so many buildings still aren't BIMmed. You don't have BIM models for the majority of buildings, and therefore one still has to try and efficiently and quickly produce a 3D model when the majority of certainly residential stock and even commercial stock are not going to have BIM models, are they?
Yeah, that's right. I think when we looked at the industry, we sort of realised that floor plans do have a life cycle. They might start off as a value or sketch, which is a basic area calculation, and then the real estate agents come along board and they want to add internal walls, internal doors, windows, and kitchen benches and the like. And then maybe the owner needs to pick that up and he wants to add in his fridge and his cooktop and the boiler system, and then the carpet layer comes along and they might want to sort of take quantities off that and say what does a carpet layer want to see, how does a carpet look in that house, and then the painter or the home renovator could take the model a step further and paint it and put the furniture in and things like that. So our scribe can handle everything from the very basic line area sketch right through to the fully interactive, what we call home passport type option, where a homeowner can lodge with it information about the fixtures and fittings and maintenance of the model as well.
So do I take it from that, and I think you alluded to that in terms of one of the areas where Unity needed to develop, that you're mixing kind of structured information together with the visual model as well. So you're able to sort of, once again, get the best of both worlds by having a 3D model in terms of the geometry, but also then add some sort of structured data to it as well.
Yeah, I can give you a let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen. Yeah, we've still got the floor plan.
I'll give you an example of where we're moving to. If I go back into aerial mode, and into this building, we have started developing what we call 3D data collection. So for argument's sake, if I'm taking dampness readings in this building, I really do need to know where that dampness reading was taken. And so I can drag this icon onto this wall and put in the dampness reading. It might be 30%. I can save that and I can timestamp that. And the icon said, whoa, that's a bit high, and it's given it a big red cross. If the dampness reading was taken up there and it was 10%, I could save that and now that's saying, well, that's quite an acceptable dampness reading. So I think there is whilst most data collection now is 2D and we're developing two-dimensional data collection for a number of customers now, there is a role now for three-dimensional data collection that's moving forward, where the third dimension is actually important to the collection of data. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So, in terms of actually sort of usability from a customer perspective, I mean, obviously, as you know, our ICS membership goes from sole practitioners through SMEs up to large corporates. How are you integrating this product with either large corporates or smaller firms in terms of integrating it with their systems and in fact their workflows?
Yeah. So there's a couple of key with working with smaller companies. They can tend to get away with using our applications as an app, So we have the ability to export or share a URL, which is sharing the model, export a JPEG, export the data to a CSV file, which they can suck into an Excel spreadsheet and things like that.
Yeah.
However, with larger companies where you have got 50 to 1,000 users, you need to integrate with their line of business systems. Otherwise, it gets so hard to maintain. So we've built integration tools that will do everything from onboarding, offboarding new valuers into your system, that will build profiles for them inside the Scribe account, that will control what jobs they get access to and what their sketches models will in fact look like, and APIs that will extract that data and put it into the line of business system. So the line of business system could include a report writing tool. You want to take the areas you've calculated or the photos you've collected, or all those, whatever data you've collected will be able to be exported directly to your line of business system. So our integration APIs apply across the range of apps, so iOS, Android, Windows. And if you're running a web browser app, then we can embed Scribe into that application. And so for intensive purposes, it looks like it's part of your application.
Yeah.
Having jump between the two. And so what we find is that users quite enjoy if they're going out in the field with an iPad, They can do their sketch on the iPad, but it's not something they want to work on for hours and hours and hours, but they can come back to their line of business system. Scribe's embedded in their line of business system. Their account with Scribe synchronizes every sketch back to a central server, which means doesn't matter what application they're using, what hardware they're using, they'll always have every sketch they've ever done linked to that. Yeah. So the integration piece is the big cost saver for most large corporates who find it difficult to manage, 1,000 licenses from, just normal applications.
Yeah, indeed, and I know it's one of the challenges. I think with such a wide and in a good way, all these applications available is obviously from a corporate perspective. You want these things to be elegant in the way they integrate with all your other systems, and you don't want lots of different logins and islands of data not talking to each other. So, I mean, given your feedback from the market and what you're working with customers, what does the future of measurement look like? I mean, this is hopefully what the future looks like, but what are people doing in terms of adoption and driving measurement forward, given, as we discussed earlier, that most buildings won't have BIM models, and this requirement to get out there with the real asset is going to be with us for a long time?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think I can see a future whereby most smaller buildings that don't have BIM models will be measured with a program like this. They'll be integrated with 2 or 3D lasers even.
Yeah.
The data will be collected and the model formed, and in a way we're a bit collection agnostic. We've built a fairly simple to use, easy to learn collection tool, and we've modeled it on a 2D sketching sort of thing. But ultimately, you could pass as a BIM model, you could pass as a CAD, a file, or even the output from a 3D laser, and it wouldn't make any difference. The key to us is that we've got a fantastic editing tool that allows you to edit the model, to share the model. Our corporate licensing system has quality control elements built into it. So if you're the quality control officer in your company, you can dictate how sketches are to be done, how models are to be built, what areas are to be completed and what areas aren't to be completed, and that way we can have a top-down control on quality and reliability. We've also built in a number of real-time compliance checks, and I think this is a future for sketching as well. And for an example, for a real estate agent who's doing a floor plan, you don't want to draw rooms that have no doors in them because you can't get access to them. Or if it's a bedroom, it needs to have a window and be a certain size. If you're a property valuer and you're not classifying each space, then we alert the user that this is the case and they need to finish the sketch. So I think for us, applying artificial intelligence and machine learning to help sketching become more reliable will be a really, really big thing in the future. And eventually, our program will learn how an individual user sketches, and when it's drawing a room, it'll suggest that, hey, you think there should be a window here, and I think the artificial intelligence will get that right eventually. And so I think that's a really exciting part of our development moving forward over the next 3 or 4 years, is application of AI and machine learning into a sketching environment.
And I guess, once again, in the spirit of the glass being half full, that feels very much like, once again, the professional being augmented and helped by technology, not replaced, but simply that technology is there to just make things more efficient and make suggestions that, once again, a valuer and a measurer can still override if they feel, well, actually, no, that was a good suggestion, but still the real world looks slightly different. It's just about really, helping the professional rather than replacing them.
I don't think any valuer likes to sit down and multiply 5 by 10 to work out that a room. So it really is just taking away the mundane part of their existence and giving them more time to focus on the more important decisions about, what's included, what's not included, And valuers will fight for a long, long time over whether columns should be included or whether dead areas and walkways and stuff should be included, and let them have that debate. But the software shouldn't determine what they do.
No, as you say, I mean, the software should be there to to capture all those objects, and then the market and the valuers can decide what area of space has value depending on the context, and follow the standards at the time. But without that base data, you can't make those kind of decisions, can you? So
yeah, and that very concept was top of our mind when we started to design Scribe, and we designed it in a way that the workflow fits the valuer. So the sketching mode is essentially, it's a data collection mode. And so you collect all your data in that mode, be it wall lengths, wall heights, or dampness, or whatever the case may be. And then you move on to the area calculation mode, which is really vetting what the automated area calculation has done and approving that. And there's even a tick box there that says, I as a valuer are happy that this area is done correctly. And the final mode is of course the preview mode. So if you do want to share a JPEG, a color, black and white, or whatever you can, if you need to include it in a report, although if your report, and reports will be eventually fully digital and fully interactive, then there's no reason why you couldn't include our URL and becomes
exactly, yeah,
interactive three-dimensional report as well. Yeah.
No, and I suppose the market will become more receptive to that. I think people are still very much into their idea of digitization may simply be a digital version of a piece of paper, arguably, but I think people are getting more aware of the benefit of linking, as you say, to a more live model, a live walkthrough, a live model like this, which does give more value, because as we've seen today, you're turning what essentially was a floor plan into essentially a walkthrough for somebody to get a much bigger sense of what that space looks like and how big it is, based on what essentially started as a sketch.
And and it's interesting, in the UK we found when we came over here that there's a lot of organisations that are multidisciplined. There are not in Australia really. There's a CBRE might be the biggest one, but most are either property valuers or surveyors or real estate agents. There's very few that are both. And so for large organisations that are multidisciplined, there is no other product on the market that you could give to your surveyors and then give to your real estate agents, then you give to your energy assessors, and they're all using the same tool. It could be completely configured differently for each of them, so it's optimised for each discipline. But it means that when somebody's gone in to do the EPC, they're now in the surveying team and they're heading out to do a survey, they grab the same model and add to it. And then if the property comes on the market and they want a floor plan, they grab the model again, add more data to it, and eventually the organisation is building on this digital model and is becoming more and more detailed as it goes on.
No, it's brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure as ever to chat, Darrell, and I'm looking forward to setting up our next session where we can explore more your experience in this whole area of using data and tech. And I guess as the Unity engine develops, you'll be able to take advantage of more technology, and as you work with the market, I'm sure you'll be enhancing and rolling new features out. So I really thank you for your time today, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah,